So you think you know everything there is to bleepin' know about Quentin bleepin' Tarantino? Well, you got another thing coming. Sure, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his biggest movie since, well, his last bleepin' movie. But this bleepin' bleep knows how to keep us coming back for more by building a fleshed out world full of colorful characters, brutal plot twists, a wild visual style, an attention to detail that rivals the best bleepin' filmmakers in the business, and a bleepin' bleep that makes us bleepin' wish that we were bleeping bleep bleep. I mean, bleep H, bleep! Anyway, let's take a deep breath, calm down a bit, and join ScreenRant as we show you these hidden secrets that even the most eagle-eyed Tarantino fans may have missed. One of the most famous bits from all of Quentin Tarantino's films is Samuel L. Jackson's quotation of Bible verse Ezekiel 25:17.
And you will know my name is the Lord.
This quote is so memorable that Samuel L. Jackson was able to recite it verbatim while appearing on the Graham Norton Show in 2014, 20 years after Pulp Fiction first premiered.
And you will know I am the Lord.
It should be noted, however, that much of the verse he's quoting doesn't actually appear in the Bible. It comes from Sonny Chiba's 1976 film The Bodyguard, with some extra flourishes added by Tarantino. The original verse reads, "I will carry out great vengeance on them and punish them in my wrath. Then they will know that I am the Lord when I take vengeance on them." Tarantino added in that bangin' opener saying, "The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men." You may be surprised to learn that the bride's revenge story of Kill Bill was hinted at in Pulp Fiction. In the 1994 film, there's a scene where Uma Thurman's Mia and John Travolta's Vince eat in the Jackrabbit Slim's restaurant, and Mia pitches a story to Vince. It was a show Mia starred in but never went beyond the pilot stage. Called Fox Force 5, Mia played a character named Raven McCoy, an assassin trained for knife combat. Raven worked alongside 4 other women, each specializing in one of the following: leadership, demolitions, kung fu, and basically French loving. When combined, these 5 women have similar character traits to the 5 women who formed the Deadly Viper assassination squad in Kill Bill. This plot also inspired the basic story for the Spice Girls' Say You'll Be There music video in 1996. When Tarantino started as a talent who hadn't yet proven his full worth to Hollywood, he made a deal for his first film. In the early 90s, he had written 2 scripts that were making the industry rounds thanks to their snappy dialogue and exploitative style: Reservoir Dogs and True Romance. Tony Scott, director of Days of Thunder, Unstoppable, The Fan, and Enemy of the State, and brother of Ridley Scott, went on to direct 1993's True Romance, starring Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette. But apparently, Tarantino had a choice over whether to direct his iconic heist with men in suits film, Reservoir Dogs, or True Romance. So imagine, if you can, an alternate universe in which Tony Scott directed Reservoir Dogs and True Romance was known as the first film with a wide release to be directed by Tarantino. As we delve deeper into Tarantino's filmography, you'll see there are family stories being told over the course of multiple films, whether you're actually aware of it or not. The characters of Vince and Vic Vega share more than just a last name. Vincent Vega, as played by John Travolta, and Vic Vega, as played by Michael Madsen in Reservoir Dogs, are blood-related. In Tarantino's mythology, these 2 guys are brothers. While Vince Vega is a hitman for a living, the really sadistic one is Vic, aka Mr. Blonde, who goes so far as to torture a hostage police officer at his team's safe house. Tarantino was so taken with these 2 separate iconic performances that he planned on making a now shelved follow-up film featuring Travolta and Madsen called The Vega Brothers. Unfortunately, we may never know what happens in Vega. Speaking of family relations, if you noticed 2 Donowitzes in True Romance and Inglourious Basterds, you didn't mishear anything. It's been revealed that Donnie the Bear Jew Donowitz from Inglourious Basterds and Lee Donowitz from True Romance are father and son. While they both led very different lives, with Donnie being a Hitler-hunting soldier and Lee being a movie producer, a poster on Reddit theorized that the Inglourious Basterds connection explains why everything is so bloody and over the top in Quentin Tarantino's world. In the reality of most of Quentin Tarantino's films, the characters live in a world where Hitler was taken out in the explosive movie theater assassination that occurs during Bastard's climax. Since it all happened in a movie theater, the people living in the present day of the Tarantino-verse are much more aware of pop culture and very desensitized to the violence that might make us cringe if we faced it in everyday life. Another connection exists between Kill Bill and Django Unchained, albeit by over a century apart. If you remember that particularly claustrophobic moment from Kill Bill in which Uma Thurman's bride finds herself trapped in a coffin buried underground, you'll know that she manages to put her Pai Mei training to good use and bust out of her coffin and up through the ground. She finds herself in a cemetery in the grave plot belonging to a Paula Schultz. Well, this Paula Schultz is actually the wife of dentist King Schultz, as played by Christoph Waltz in Django Unchained. Christoph Waltz ended up going on another revenge quest in the SNL sketch Jesus Uncrossed, back when he hosted the show while promoting Django. While the director loves an obscure 70s B-movie like Nobody's Business, he also has a huge affinity for pop culture icons of yore, which explains why iconic kung fu star David Carradine played the Bill that everyone wanted to kill and why he loves the king of rock and roll. He even played an Elvis impersonator in an episode of The Golden Girls. And while that factoid could make up an entry all to itself, this secret you may have missed is Quentin Tarantino's little tribute to the Duke, John Wayne. In Pulp Fiction, when Butch gets the upper hand over Zed, he gives his take on one of John Wayne's famous lines from Rio Bravo. "You want that gun, don't you, Zed? Go ahead and pick it up. I want you to pick it up." While Elvis and John Wayne are icons in our own reality, in the Tarantino universe, Pai Mei is perhaps one of the wisest figures of all. The bride's teacher in Kill Bill, Pai Mei teaches her patience, precision, and the 5-point exploding heart technique. Prolific Chinese actor Chia Hui Liu plays the white-bearded teacher in the film, and he is perfect for the part. Surprisingly, Tarantino very nearly considered himself for the part. While this may have been a great meta in-joke, you can't top Chia Hui Liu in the role. The guy also plays Johnny Mo, the bald, masked fighter from the Crazy 88 scene in the climax of Kill Bill Volume 1. Kill Bill is an embarrassment of riches, filled to the brim with exciting set piece after exciting set piece, but Pulp Fiction is still, to many fans, Quentin Tarantino's magnum opus. While many stars were either given breakout roles or masterful comebacks in the film, Christopher Walken's short walk-on is considered by many to be a standout in the film. Apparently, Tarantino felt the same way, because Walken's character gets a quick mention in Django Unchained. Captain Coons, Walken's Vietnam vet character from Pulp, is name-dropped in a wanted poster seen in Django. The poster details a reward that would be given to anyone who finds Crazy Craig Coons along with members of the rest of his gang. When people bring up Quentin Tarantino films, they don't mention natural-born killers as often as the rest. Well, that's probably because he didn't direct the film about Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis's turn as serial killers. That role went to director Oliver Stone. However, characters and killers still fit within Tarantino's carefully crafted universe. Crazier than the killers and natural-born killers is the fact that the character of Detective Jack Scagnetti, played by Tom Sizemore, is related to Seymour Scagnetti, who we learn is Mr. Blunt's parole officer in Reservoir Dogs. These two characters are also brothers. In a more ironic twist, Steve Buscemi doesn't play a pair of brothers, but his roles in Reservoir Dogs and in Pulp Fiction do comment on each other. In Dogs, Buscemi plays Mr. Pink, who famously says the line that he doesn't tip. He also goes on to complain about the waitress with the following: "I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're just doing their job."
She wasn't anything special. Hey, look, I ordered coffee, right? Now, we've been here a long time. She's only filled my cup 3 times. I mean, when I order coffee, I want it filled 6 times.
In Pulp Fiction, Tarantino's follow-up to Reservoir Dogs, Buscemi went on to appear in a cameo role as a waiter at the Jackrabbit Slim's restaurant. Here, as the hapless server, he has a thankless role requiring him to dress as Buddy Holly in the themed restaurant. Tarantino has a distinct visual style, and in order to accomplish the needs for a given shoot, he and his creative team go to interesting lengths. Take the adrenaline shot moment in Pulp Fiction. In the famous scene, a giant syringe is plunged into Uma Thurman's character, Mia. In order to get it to look like John Travolta's character Vince actually jammed the adrenaline shot into Mia's chest, they did it in reverse so that rather than having Travolta bring his hands down on her chest, he's pulling his hands away from Thurman's chest as quickly as possible. This likely would keep the actress as safe as possible. And when the footage was played backwards, it would accomplish the effect of Vince's hands ramming the syringe into Mia's chest. Big Kahuna Burger isn't just a made-up restaurant in Pulp Fiction. The franchise appears in other Tarantino films as well, including Reservoir Dogs, From Dusk Till Dawn, Death Proof, and 4 Rooms, an anthology of 4 different stories each directed by Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, Alexander Rockwell, and Allison Anders. Robert Rodriguez, who's a close friend of Tarantino's and who directed the Tarantino-scripted From Dusk Till Dawn, went on to use the Big Kahuna restaurant in his children's film Shark Boy and Lava Girl 3D. While there is a restaurant inspired by Big Kahuna Burger in Austin, Texas, the popular online cooking series Binging with Babish shows you how to make an authentic Kahuna Burger from the comfort of your own kitchen. In Kill Bill Volume 1, Oren Ishii may not be the big bad of the 2-movie series, but she's the main villain of Part 1's climax. While Lucy Liu's character faces off against Uma Thurman's bride, she says, "You might not last 5 minutes." Many of us likely just assume that this was a throwaway line. How often do you just say to friends, "I'll be there in 10 minutes," even though it may take you 7 or it may take you 17 minutes to get where you're going? We often just like to give out round numbers, and people give you the benefit of the doubt. Well, Tarantino is nothing if not precise, and the face-off between Ishii and the bride lasts just 1 second shy of 5 minutes, a total of 4 minutes and 59 seconds. You may not have realized that another relationship spans the course of generations and 2 separate movies. Is it just because both characters have British accents? Maybe. But Tim Roth's English Pete of Hateful Eight is the great-great-grandfather to Michael Fassbender's Archie Highcox of Inglourious Basterds. While both men are involved in clever ruses to outsmart other characters in their respective films, English Pete is the nefarious one, working for Jody Domergue's band of outlaws. Meanwhile, Archie Highcox fighting for the Allied cause during World War II shows that even though several generations have passed, the sins of the great-great-grandfather don't always have bearing on the actions of the great-great-great or great-great-great-grandchildren. Now, actor Michael Parks may have thought that his relationship with his character Texas Ranger Earl McGraw was set to last only one film. He's taken out by the lead characters, the Gecko brothers, in From Dusk Till Dawn. His son, Edgar McGraw, appears in From Dusk Till Dawn 2, and Tarantino brought both characters back for Kill Bill. They're the investigators who visit the murder scene of the bride's wedding. Earl's relationship with his daughter Dakota is fleshed out in the Grindhouse films. However, it's worth noting that the Earl and Edgar McGraw connection extends to real life as well. Earl and Edgar, played by actors Michael Parks and James Parks, are actually father and son. Tarantino has a strong affinity for cinema that spans generations, and while the Parks boys get to appear in multiple films, Tarantino makes a much subtler nod to a father and daughter acting duo in one of his films. Well-known actors Russ Tamblyn and Amber Tamblyn both appear in Django Unchained. Russ is credited as son of a gunfighter in an apparent nod to his role in the 1965 film of the same name. While Amber's cameo in Django mostly involves her looking out of a window, her character is credited as daughter of a son of a gunfighter. According to Amber, Tarantino asked her to have a cameo in the film simply because they're friends, and she suggested the character names. While it's not explicitly stated in Pulp Fiction, fans have for years claimed that Vince and Mia apparently took home that trophy through some less than savory means. Vince and Mia have the trophy following the famous twist competition scene, so it's just assumed by many audience members that they won the competition. After all, they did a fantastic job. Yet, according to certain fans, if you pay close attention to the sound of the TV playing when Butch returns to his apartment, you'll hear a news report claiming that the trophy was stolen from Jackrabbit Slims. The website legendsrevealed.com confirmed that the sound coming from the TV is simply an ad for Jackrabbit Slims and doesn't mention the stolen trophy. Reservoir Dogs has a lot going for it. A solid cast, masterful dialogue, and a straightforward story. The one thing you might be surprised to find Tarantino didn't seem to put a ton of thought into? The title. Apparently, no one has any idea why it's called Reservoir Dogs. It sounds poetic. You can argue that the guys are all like wild dogs drinking from a reservoir or something like that. It also recalls titles of other films like Dog Day Afternoon. When promoting the movie, Tarantino said that Reservoir Dogs was a phrase used in Breathless and other French films, and that the phrase was synonymous with snitch. He went on to negate these statements, saying he just tried to justify the random title to add clout to the film. As we've said before, the exploitation films of the 70s have had a huge effect on Tarantino's career. However, one film has stood above others as a milestone in action filmmaking, and probably inspired Quentin more than most: Shaft. It also can't be ignored that the remakes of Shaft starred Samuel L. Jackson, and the actor definitely proved himself as a worthy successor to Richard Roundtree in the title role thanks to his performance in Pulp Fiction. Shaft goes beyond a mere style influence for Tarantino. In Django Unchained, it's revealed that Django's wife's full name is Broomhilda von Shaft, and she is definitely an ancestor of the famous John Shaft. Sometimes, storytellers have to work really hard to find the perfect idea for the next film. Quentin Tarantino just has to go shopping for a Volvo. While the director was out car shopping with a friend, he said that he didn't want to get into any car accident and therefore preferred the incredibly safe reputation of Volvo. The friend responded that with all the stunt experts at Tarantino's disposal, he could just pay them to death-proof any car he wanted, Volvo or not. Like a light bulb, the phrase death-proof inspired Tarantino to make the Grindhouse film of the same name. Quentin Tarantino is not only known for his homages to pop culture of the past, but for his nods to the films of the present. Let's face it, this guy is self-aware, and his movies can get pretty meta as well. Take Jackie Brown, for instance. The 1997 film features a scene in which the character, Max Cherry, reads from a book titled Rum Punch. This Elmore Leonard novel is actually the book on which Jackie Brown is based. Perhaps this is a nod to the fact that outside of the fact that Quentin Tarantino changed Jackie Brown's name and race for his adaptation, it's considered a rather faithful retelling of Elmore Leonard's story. Or maybe it's simply a wink at the audience. In Death Proof, Kurt Russell is featured front and center, but it's an article of clothing from Kurt Russell's past that makes a cameo appearance in this film. If you look closely during the movie's bar scene, you'll see that among the many knickknacks hanging on the wall is Kurt Russell's tank top from Big Trouble in Little China. While Big Trouble was more of a mainstream release and tends to get referenced more by 80s fans and pop culture buffs than the usual films that Tarantino likes to reference, its fun, campy style still seems right up Quentin Tarantino's alley. While many of the characters mentioned in this video tend to be related, there's one unnamed woman who doesn't seem to be connected to anybody. She's simply the same actress appearing in 2 of Tarantino's movies who ends up on the receiving end of 2 entirely different and equally horrible situations. This woman, actress Linda Kay, gets her car stolen by Steve Buscemi's Mr. Pink in Reservoir Dogs. In Pulp Fiction, Marcellus shoots her. While IMDb doesn't give her characters names, she's known as Shocked Woman in Reservoir Dogs and Shot Lady in Pulp Fiction. She is credited for the stunts in those films. So that's gotta be a win in anybody's book. And finally, how are these movies all connected? Well, Quentin Tarantino himself has an answer. This stuff is not all conjecture on some Redditor's page. Tarantino has actually thought through all of his film's connections, and according to him, there's a realer-than-real universe, alright, and all the characters inhabit that one. Kill Bill and From Dusk Till Dawn may seem way too fantastical to be real, but that's because they're actually movies within Tarantino's fictional universe as well. These films are the movies that characters from Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs would go see. And we can just assume that the events of Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, and Hateful Eight are all taught in the history books. And that's the end of our bleepin' video. But it's not the end of our stories on the man behind Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, and countless other flicks. Subscribe to ScreenRant to stay up to date on the latest details about Quentin Tarantino and other filmmakers you love to follow. And hey, let us know if there are any hidden secrets or made-up verses we may have missed by commenting below. If any of you sons of bleeps got anything else to say, now's the bleepin' time. As for us, that's a bingo.